was my notifications of the stream.
Okay, got it.
Oh, you're
All
about to.
right. All right, we're back. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that is absolutely what Company of Wolves is about. It's all about like the three images of female sexuality and the one which is, for lack of a better way of putting it, the way. Um the one that always, I mean, obviously I love the core story, the retelling of Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like that imagery is so fucking obvious even within the fairy tale. Why is Little Red Riding Hood, why is her hood red? Because it's about menstruation.
And the hymen.
And the hymen. Yeah. And it's really odd because like the woodcutter, the woodsman who saves her and the grandmother, that is the most recent addition to the story.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
Company of
collateral.
Wolves, well, the Company of Wolves basically just tells the tale, which is she meets the wolf. She meets masculinity that is appealing to her. She is tempted by it. She sees it as something evil. She realizes that there's something in her that is like that. And in the end, she realizes she is a wolf too.
You
You
can also
know?
make that description among friends. So
Hmm.
you find something in them that is like you.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my favorite story in that, but because it's like it's so you got Little Red Riding Hood and she is being told stories, and at the end she tells a story. She tells a story to the big bad wolf,
Hmm.
and the story she tells the big bad wolf is my favorite.
Oh my god, I just love that when she's just like holding him and then
Yeah,
she just like there. I'll tell
there,
the story of a wounded
wounded wolf.
wolf.
Yeah, because she has entered his world, but he has also entered hers, and because of that, the other wolves reject the big bad wolf because now he has entered the world of man because he has fallen in love with a woman. And it's so cool.
Mm.
And at the end, the story she tells is of this. She's like, a she wolf crawled out of hell one day, out of a well, and she's injured by these hunters, and she runs into a chapel garden, and there is a monk, and the monk. It's my favorite moment. The monk goes, "Are you of God or the devil?" And he walks up to her, and then he goes, "What do I care? You're in pain." And that moment when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh my god!" It's like I fucking wept. I was like, "What is it? What is it about that?" It's because that's what you want the real Christian to be like. You want the real Christian to be like that, to be the person that's like, I don't care if you're of God or the devil. If you are is suffering, that's all I am worried about. It's all I care. And that's a beautiful, powerful statement. There it is, in my opinion, the true Christian ideal. It's sorely lacking, sorely rarer than it should be.
And how sad is that fact?
It is. It's really sad because it's the whole point of the story of Jesus. It's the whole goddamn point, you know? And no, but unfortunately, all religions, they accumulate dogma. And the dogma, oh, geez,
When
it just
when
always goes astray at that point.
when the idea becomes ideology, it gets dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, it gets super dangerous because um, the ideology itself, it manifests in people's minds, has a mind of its own. It
Mm.
has desires that are not yours, and it's one of the things that you can run into that is terrifying. Like when you realize that ideology can be running rampant in your own head, making decisions for you.
And this happens when
Ooh,
you don't adapt your religion according to the state of people at the time.
this is what happens when you don't quit, when you don't challenge it. An ideology is kind of like an operating system. It's like a robot. It's like a mental robot.
I see.
And yeah, if one enters you, it can be very useful because it can give you a framework to work in. But if you let it make your decisions, especially when you come up against something that's unfamiliar, that's dangerous. That's really dangerous because now you're you're submitting your will to it, and that's a problem. That's a problem for the individual on a huge level, and it's bad for everybody. It's bad for you. It's bad for the people around you.
You know,
You know,
it's interesting because um I was just talking to just the other day. I was just talking to Arthur Knowledge about this on Twitter
yeah.
because, and if I may quote myself,
Hmm.
if
As we magicians are fond to do.
if I if I may quote myself, because he asked me, like, as a Hindu, how do I feel about the New Age movement, because he sees they often bastardize things that my religion talks about.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it kind of gives this a little bit. What I said was, the New Age movement is weird. I'm all for the promotion of sharing universal spiritual principles beyond dogma and cultural restrictions, but at the same time, it creates such a hodgepodge of concepts without context that it often does a disservice to said concepts and leaves the seeker adrift without anything solid to build their inner temple on. As a person
Yeah.
advances in spiritual practice, they may begin to see the interconnectedness of the truly universal, and black and white goes gray, and that's fine. But without a clearly defined set of fundamentals to build off of, and then the freedom to gauge what is and what isn't as one gains experience, then what you're left with is a wishy-washy paste of a belief system which doesn't help you deal with the complexity of life at all.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the New Age movement,
It's
which is
it's like one of those weird things where it's like, and I get why it happened. I get why that it's a thing, and I think the reason it's such a thing is because people, like, especially in the 60s and 70s, people saw the awesome potentiality and they had a craving for the spiritual, but at the same time they were afraid because they saw the potential hazards of religious restriction. But instead of facing that head on, they said, okay, we're just going to get rid of that altogether. But it ended up fucking up the ability to use it.
yeah.
You know,
Is the stream still going? Is it good?
um, I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean,
Okay.
it's
Cool.
lagging as usual, but it's up.
Okay. And by lagging, does that mean you mean it's out of sync, or is it
Out,
just like it's just behind us?
out of
Oh,
sync.
it is out of sync. Okay.
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
like about a minute behind.
Ah. All right. Hopefully that'll have fixed a lot of it. Yeah. 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 That is kind of how I feel about the New Age movement, which is yeah, it's really if you stop starting there is fine, stopping there it's not enough. It's not going to give you what you need. Um, it's really odd. Like you get used to certain concepts, like meditation is about emptying your mind, and then you get stuck on them because you don't realize emptying your mind is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
Then your mind is filled. You know, but it is supposed to be filled with you and your thoughts
Hmm.
and what you are. And that's a really hard concept for people, particularly in the modern world, to really grasp because we exist in this period of time where we believe, for good reason, for good reason, that, oh, well, There's nothing outside of you in your head. So why would I need to empty my thoughts in order to know my own thoughts? You know, and that's a really easy answer to come up with if you've never really thought about it.
Mm.
Because there are thoughts that you experience that you're like, wait a minute, how many times have you thought something and gone, wait, that's not me? That's actually a much truer statement than people realize, you know?
So it's basically stripping of the ego, negative bias and positive bias.
No, 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 no. It's trying to figure out which of those biases are yours.
I see.
You know,
You know,
that's why, like,
So what do I think really?
yes. Yeah.
see, that's why, like, you might remember, like, from that video of mine about like the different levels of consciousness. That's why I talk about it as channels. And the reason I talk about them like TV channels is because that's actually how I teach meditation. When I teach meditation,
Oh.
I don't say, okay, we're going to try to empty the mind. I never say that. I never use that terminology. I don't like that terminology. I The metaphor I give my students is like, okay, imagine a television. If you have like basic cable, all the stations are constantly getting beamed to your television, but there's that one station that's just blank, that's just snowy. If you turn to that station, all the other ones are still there. It's still all happening. Your receiver is still getting all that information. It's just that the attention is not there. We're just shifting our attention to a blank channel right now.
Yeah, yeah. And funny enough, in the modern world of the 20th century, that idea of the television channel being part of the mind, that got in deep. That got in really deep.
Mhm.
Like you wouldn't think that such a recent thing would have a profound effect on the unconscious, but does. Like that was the central metaphor that Persona 4 used. And they used it for a reason because that actually is a technique that is used. It's a visualization technique that is used to get in touch with, the realm of ideas, the realm of the persona, the realm of shadows.
And but I think I think possibly like the reason that it's become such a prolific representation, even though it's so recent, is because with the advent of the radio and the television is probably the first time that there's been a physical technological example that you can give of this
Yeah.
metaphysical phenomena that people can actually have a direct like this.
Focused on a certain frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how that imagery is going to change in the next within the next two generations. I guarantee you the visualization technique is going to be of internets and servers and firewalls. I absolutely guarantee you.
You see, children, it's like opening a new tab on Google Chrome. The other tabs are open. You're just not seeing them.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, exactly. I guarantee that's going to work its way in. People will dream that way. It will happen.
Or
Um,
YouTube or any kind of website with links on it. Like the information is
yeah,
there, you just don't see it yet.
yeah. There is a reason. There is a reason that Hindu imagery works so well in the digital age, and there is a reason that so much tech support comes out of India. That model of thought and that model of visualizing the mind comes very naturally
We have
to
been
people with Hindu backgrounds.
we have been waiting for 10,000 years for the West to catch up. Finally.
Yeah.
Hang on. That snowflake diagram of the souls and relationship to other people.
Hmm.
Hang on, let me see if I can pull it. Yeah, like this is what it looks
Oh.
like to me. This is sort of what it,
Oh. Oh. It's like a tree of life molecular diagram kind of thing.
Sort of, yeah. Thing is,
Yeah,
like you can pick any one of these outside circles. You can still create the same picture. But if I
yeah,
did the whole thing, it
yeah.
would take me forever.
Right, right, right. Okay, so you've seen a very small part. You've focused on a very specific part. That's not unusual, and that's not
But
bad at all.
yeah, no, because like kudos, you focused enough to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
perfection of it. Kudos. Most people have no idea what the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Most people don't see that. You know,
Jesus Christ, I
it's
thought I was just making things up.
yeah, no, no. Well, you are, but it's a thing that exists because people make it up. You know, it exists because of people.
And even
Hmm.
and even if, like, for instance, now,
Like discrimination or affection. Sort of.
Yeah, like there's so many things that exist precisely because people believe they do and because people think them. Love is a good example. Love exists because of people. It might exist. I'm sure it exists with animals too, but that's still, you know, it's still a psychological thing. Um, yeah,
It's,
things like
which
faith,
is not saying
bravery.
it's
These
fake.
are
It's just something we do.
it's ephemeral. Yeah, it's a phenomenon. It's an experience. It's ephemeral. You know, it
of
doesn't really have to do with solid, like material reality. But, anyone who doesn't think fear is, no one can say fear isn't real. Not really. Fear is damn real. You will react as if it is.
to put it in a different way, Black Envoy. Well, of course it's all happening in your head, Envoy, but who's to say that means it's not real?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. End of Harry Potter. I couldn't believe that J.K. Rowling went there. I was like, oh shit, is she gonna actually say that? Oh shit, she did. Holy crap.
Yep.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense because what most people don't realize about Harry Potter, it is modeled after something that came before, and I don't just mean the hero's journey. It is a specific series of books, and it is referred to collectively as the Hermetic Corpus.
Hmm.
Hermetic corpus.
The Hermetic Corpus. They are the works of Hermes the Thrice Great, aka Hermes Trismegistus, aka the man for whom Hermetic magic is named.
Okay.
It's alchemy,
Yeah, it's
people.
alchemy. Harry Potter's all based around concepts of alchemy.
Yeah, no. Like the first time, uh, okay, because Harry Potter's kind of like a fun family activity in my family. When the first book came out, like every time like a new book came out, what would happen is me, my mom, and my sister would all sit on the couch together, and we would take turns reading aloud until we had read through the book completely with each other. It's fun.
Oh man, that must have been amazing.
It's really fun. I love our time together. But yeah, the first time we were reading it together, and like we were reading like Sorcerer's Stone together, and I was like, huh, Sorcerer's Stone. That sounds like something I know. And then they said Nicholas Flamel. I was like, you son of a bitch, J.K. Rowling.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see
yeah, yeah,
going.
yeah, yeah. The Sorcerer's Stone, obviously named for the Philosopher's Stone. All the thing which turns lead into gold,
Well,
It's
or
literally called the Philosopher's Stone in the British edition.
yeah, it's called that in the UK. I don't know why we changed it, but whatever.
yeah, yeah. It was a very strange change.
Well,
But
well,
yeah,
we're already getting hit for teaching witchcraft to kids.
yeah, and the thing I love is the most insanely like this is one of those. It's so dumb, but I loved it. Of the like so as above, so below is Quidditch. The Quidditch game, the Quidditch matches in Harry Potter are microcosms of the entire story.
Yeah.
Everything that happens in the Quidditch match is something that happens in the overall plot. And the Philosopher's Stone is the snitch. Harry Potter's trying to get the Philosopher's Stone. He has to chase it down. And there are people trying to stop him, and people trying to kill him, and people trying to help him that he thinks are trying to stop him, and all that shit. It's yeah. The entire Harry Potter series is based on the Hermetic Corpus.
And then he nearly chokes on the damn thing.
Yeah, because it's a lot. It's scary.
Plus, plus also phallic imagery.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's gonna happen because one of the things, this is something that's really a sticking point right now, and it's really, 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 really hard to explain. I'm actually, honestly trying to do a video on it, which is the gender argument that is currently happening is really infuriating because you have two sides that are not willing to state the obvious. And the obvious is there is a thing that we call masculine and there is a thing we call feminine.
I mean, okay, one of the biggest... I'm sorry.
Yeah, that drives me insane. It's like, as you know, I'm bisexual. I am both man and woman, and yet I feel like I don't express both sides enough. It's like, I don't understand how that is because I always act how I always do. It was like, but then just like one part of me is like questioning, well, what if there's some part of me I haven't tapped into that is purely male? But it's like, what else do I have to do?
Well, you have to engage in it. That's what you have to do. You have to engage in it,
Yeah,
like,
I exercise this male part of my personality every day, and it's like we're almost there.
yeah. You're trying to figure out, yeah, you're almost there. So what aren't you doing?
I don't know. It's something like, if I'm both man and woman, then there should be really no difference other than, subtle things.
Oh no. They're very different. They are more alike than they are different, but those differences matter. The differences really matter, because it's not, when we're talking about it on this level, we're not talking about literal biological male and female. We are talking about the overall
tendencies. We're talking about
yeah
the involvements.
It feels like trying to use a limb I never knew I had. It's like,
yes,
it sort of works, but not quite.
yeah. There's a part of the masculine that you need to engage in as a woman, because it's the part of you that you've shed, not necessarily consciously, just because the world has an expectation of you as a female. And so you're like, okay, well, females kind of act like this according to my society and the time that I exist, or as Jung would say, as the spirit of the times says. As the zeitgeist tells you.
Has dictated.
Yeah. The zeitgeist has dictated that woman behaves thusly while in the period of time that you exist in your state right now. However, there is another side. There is the spirit of the depths, the spirit of the deep. And that one will contain all the things about yourself which you have shoved in a corner.
Is that
and
the
for
true
women,
self or the shadow?
That's the shadow. That's the shadow. To say it's the true self would be a misnomer. But to say that it's the shadow, that it is the inner self, meaning the self that you don't show others, that would be accurate.
What's so interesting is that, okay, so a younger friend of mine who's a bit of a student of mine, he's starting to get into Carl Jung, which I'm very, very happy.
Yeah.
But we were having a conversation the other day because he's home from school for a little bit, and he was like, yeah, I was thinking of reading this thing, the Red Book. I was like, no! No!
You're not ready.
No, exactly. And he was like, well, why? What? I'm like, no. I like ran through through my bookshelves. I was like, men and his symbols, men and his
Symbols.
read this first.
Speaking of which, and
Yeah.
Jack, I remember we were talking about the man's journey versus the woman's journey, and you said how men
Yes.
are expected to be more rambunctious, and basically, if men misbehave, people aren't surprised. It's kind of
Yeah,
struck
they're
me
not
because
surprised.
as a guy, I'm generally more relaxed in my own skin. Not to say that I'm not
Yes.
out there or crazy. I'm just more calm and relaxed because I feel like I have more freedom.
Yeah, that's an aspect of masculinity. That and notice something that doesn't just that sense of freedom that you're experiencing when you tap into that. That's not a societal thing. That is literally masculinity. Masculinity tells you one thing that femininity never doesn't, which is you don't have to give a fuck. Masculinity will tell you don't have to give a fuck. You do not have to care. Caring is somewhat a choice. And there are things outside of what you want that you just don't care about, and you shouldn't care about whether or not you care about it. That's masculinity. That's an aspect of masculinity.
Mm.
But because males tend to act that way is why the expectation is also there. The expectation that they will act like that is there because of the tendency.
And that's always why, if you're if you are in sexual pursuit of someone, one of the oldest tricks in the book, so to speak, and this makes it sound so terrible, and I'm so sorry, is to go like, oh, that really strikes a chord with me. I feel about that. He cares?
Yeah. But of course, what's the ultimate trick? The ultimate trick is that at the end of the day, he does, or he will grow too.
Oh yeah,
And that is getting in touch with the feminine. That is working that from the other angle.
Yeah, that's where I hit a wall. It's like, am I doing this wrong? Because as a guy, it's like I can't be as intimate or as sensual as I am as a woman. It's like I can't move a certain way a woman would, and it's like, why? I still have a body. Everything should work the same way, but it feels like everything has to move differently.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because that's the thing though, is that like, now this is always like such an interesting hat trick, is that, all right, men getting in touch with their feminine side, experiencing the feminine, females getting in touch with their masculine side, experiencing the masculine. Now, a lot of people do this. The interesting hat trick is that, okay, now you have to, probably from both sides, also engage in what is it like when these two sides meet in you at the same time.
Oh yeah.
That's where I get confused. It's
That's
like
that's the hat trick.
Yeah.
I was like I've imagined myself as a guy so many times, and recently it hit me. Why? How come I've never imagined myself if I were androgynous, like both man and female physically melded together? It's like I don't know. I never thought about that. Why didn't I ever think about that? I
Yeah.
don't know
That's
what
something
that
I've
looks
done.
like.
Yeah. I know what that looks like for me. Oh, wait a minute.
It got away from you.
No, it's actually a bit more.
I hear wheels turning.
No, yeah. Wheels are turning in my head. Wheels are turning in my head. I'm like, ooh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm gonna have to explore that later. I just realized something. I realized something about myself just then.
You're secretly Dr. Frankenfurter.
Yeah. Well, no, secretly, what secretly? Um,
We must return to our planet friends. Galaxy.
Transsexual Transylvania. But yeah. There is there everyone has those two sides. The more masculine one, the more feminine one, and you want to spend some time engaging with both, and the amalgamation of the two, and that's a trick. That's an old trick, and the reason that you do this is because you have taken these parts of you and shoved them in a corner, and you need some way to reintegrate them. You're always going to have a preference for one style of behavior over the other. That's
Mhm.
very natural. Um,
Because
you can,
the world is a world of dichotomies. We must, we must do this.
yeah. And sometimes the dichotomies don't line up. And so they must be brought back into alignment. This is the struggle in particular of transsexual people.
Hmm.
Because the dichotomy of their gender identity and their biological gender are out of sync. And so they have to find a way to realign it
This
so
body
that
isn't right, or the way being told to act isn't right.
yeah, exactly. And they have to realign it so that life is good for them.
And what's
Um
it's so interesting too is that when it comes to things like this, the the getting in touch with both the masculine and the feminine, exploring all these different realms of yourself, it's so funny because societally people are so afraid and paranoid of that because they're like, no, I'm going to lose myself if I go too deep in this. And the truth of it is, no, you don't lose yourself. You actually find yourself.
yeah.
It just
Yeah.
it has the illusion of you, because what happens is you lose a little bit of the dependence on the persona, and that's the thing that people mistake for losing themselves. I'm like, no, you find yourself.
Ooh, that's a really good way of putting it. I hadn't realized that that's what it was. You're right. Oh,
Yeah.
geez, you're right. Yeah, I hadn't realized that. But no, that's exactly it. Like the persona, the sense of losing yourself is breaking away from the persona that you have created. Actually, I say you created, but like it's better to say that it develops, that you have developed. Um,
Because believe,
created makes it sound like there was a plan.
yeah, believe
Um,
if we came into this world knowing exactly what the development of the persona would do to us, we would not, it would not develop that way.
yeah, we wouldn't have done
Picture
it
of
that
how we
way.
see ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, the persona is how we want other people to see us. It
It's
is the mechanism by which we interface with other people. And a lot of people, and I know me and Yogi and uh, Guru and a few other people. In fact, a lot of people, Alex as well. Um, the persona and the not the shadow, but the what's the other one called? There's the persona and oh crap,
The persona, the soul, the mask.
persona, the mask. There's a one that's like, ooh, I almost had it. The I think it's demeanor. It's
Behavior.
basically, well, let me put it this way. There's a lot of like there are a lot of Jungian tests that trick you into
The
revealing
archetype?
like things about you. Thank you. Like there's the archetype and then there's the persona. The archetype is kind of like that's a lot closer to who you are really.
mm,
And the persona is how you put it out. For a lot of people,
So how
um,
you express it.
yeah. For me, for Yogi, for Alex, a few other people, those things are almost in perfect alignment. They're almost identical. Not quite, because no one's quite who they are on the outside, who they are on the inside. But for the vast majority of it, very much in alignment, with the exception of a couple of things. Some people are not. A
So
lot of people aren't like that.
so
Um,
I am the wuthering child and this is how I express it.
yeah.
Under the sun or the moon.
I'm.
Like
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah. Oh. Oh, we lost Yogi for a
Oh
minute
dear.
there. Yeah, yeah, he'll be back. But yeah, it's the idea that you are in touch with one archetype or another, and to gain insight into not only how you're presenting, but as to how you actually feel internally. That's a big deal. Um,
Mm.
we call him up. Maybe he needs a prodding. Yeah, like for example, um, one could on one level
Hey, Jack.
be, yeah.
I'm sorry. I need to go away from the computer for about 5 to 10 minutes. I'll be right back.
Oh,
Oh, okay, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more like how, say for example, the archetype that most strongly represents you might be um like the wounded child or the wise king or the hero. And there are several levels of analysis of the archetype. Like you
mhm.
usually, when you're being Jungian, analyzed on Jungian lines, you will have the dominant archetype, which is this is the one that you are more than anything else, and then you will have like three others that are very very strong within you, and these are how you are, in a general archetypal sense, different from just the pure archetype. But those archetypes could also be different in the persona. The core one won't be, but some of the other ones will. Um, like for instance, one could be on one level the wise king, but present as the magician, which is a different archetype.
I actually took the Jungian test once. At the very top, it definitely was the child, and I think the other one was
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
the magician, and the wise man.
Yeah, yeah, the wise man, aka the wise king. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, 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 that makes perfect sense. That makes total perfect sense. Given what you've mentioned about your past, yeah, yeah, the the wounded child is very likely, extremely likely. You know,
Mm.
yeah, the wounded child is very interesting because you walk around with this wound, this horrible knowledge, and that horrible knowledge is love ain't guaranteed. Love is not always enough. Love is not always requited, and it's not unconditional. That is a horrible thing for someone to carry. It's a horrible burden. It's awful. But the upside is that you understand love's value. You understand that it is precious, that it is important, you know, that you can actually take the pain of your own existence and turn it into something that helps other people.
I remember I was having a discussion with my sister. I was having like this crisis of emotions, but I was like just talking it very calmly with my sister because I didn't want her to worry.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I brought up to her that if I wasn't her sister, would she love me? And she says, "Well, of course I wouldn't, because you weren't related to me. I wouldn't know you." It was like I didn't say this, but it was like I just accepted her answer and we just continued our day. But on the inside, I'm going, "Did you hear what you just said? Crisis of
Yeah,
like I'm your sister, but you just told me your love is conditional."
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. Like you know, you know. And that's not a fun thing to know. No one wants to know that shit. That ain't fun, you know? But like I said, but because you know that, you understand how precious it is. Oops, excuse me. And you can use that to ironically let people in. You could
Yeah, there
use
was
the pain and confusion and the desire to, you know, have the love that you just weren't given to heal the wound itself. It's very interesting.
a time when I believed that my brother and dad had stopped loving me because I wasn't always the best kid. I didn't always meet their expectations or their hopes. And I figured at some point they just gave up that and they would take care of me because they had to, but the love was gone.
Mm,
My brother got really angry at that. And over time, when they stuck with me, I realized, okay, if they're still with me for this long, it's become more than an obligation. They really do love me.
yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. It's. Mm-hmm. That's right. That is right. That is absolutely 100% correct.
I
You
still
know,
have to remind
because
myself
hey,
that sometimes
just
because
remember, if you here is a horror. Let me give you a nasty, mean, negative example. Of course, they love you. They understand, and you have all been wronged by a common enemy. They understand. They understand a bit of what has been done. Very important. Like my brother is very important to me because of that. The whole like, was I going crazy or did this happen? He's like, oh no, that happened. I remember that. I remember that like it was yesterday. And you're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, oh, thank God. I thought I was, I was starting to think I had made it up because your brain does that because it doesn't want to think about it. You don't want to think about the terrible things that happened to you. That's fucking unpleasant. And so if you have a very clever brain, it'll start to disassociate you from your own feelings. But there's a part of you that's like, wait, I need those. I need my feelings. Like, what the fuck? Don't take those away. No, they're dangerous. Just gonna put them all over here. And lock them up in a safe where you can't touch them. You don't need it. You don't need this key that I'm going to conveniently leave on the table for you. Don't touch it. Like, don't, whatever you do, don't go in there. The brain does that. It does. The mind does that. I don't know why it does it, but it does it. Um. So yeah, yeah. By the way, I don't think I have said this yet. I'm glad you're telling me about this, and I'm sorry that it happened. I'm glad you're telling me, but I'm sorry that the pain exists.
I'm sorry I hurt you. I hurt you with this information.
Hmm? What are you sorry about?
I'm sorry I hurt you with this information.
No, you didn't hurt me. You didn't hurt me at
It's
all. I've been through my own pain. Like I've been through a very similar pain on the experiential personal level. Can't touch that. Yeah, I cannot touch that. It's too big.
yeah.
You
I just
know.
felt like I should talk about it. I guess I wasn't expecting
Oops.
it to affect me this much.
Well, yeah, yeah. It can be a profound moment. You know. Figuring out ways to cope that are maybe different than what you
Oh,
have
I
done
think you'll be
before.
back.
And all
Ah,
right.
yeah. I'm sorry. Was it? I got like a call from my mom. She's running late this morning, so she's like, "Would you mind getting your grandmother up and getting her dressed so I can take her to her doctor's appointment?" I'm like, "No problem."
Uh, oh man. Come
Oh,
on,
Thanks,
grandmother,
Jackula.
wake up.
so
Oh, no
so
problem.
what did we delve into while I was away dealing with the mundane?
Oh, I was talking about the wounded child and
Oh,
how the yeah, how the burden of realizing love is not conditional and how horrible that is, especially for a child to carry around.
You see,
You know,
And then I apologize for my emotions.
oh, never apologize for your emotions. They're yours. But it's so weird. I recently came to the realization that, and Jack knows this, like the main archetype in my Jungian analysis is the magical child. So I think that's why I recently came to the realization that I think that's why um, I have such an affinity for people who very obviously are the wounded child, because it's kind of like me seeing something that I can recognize as me, but recognizing that something's gone wrong, and me wanting to go, oh, no, it doesn't have to. There's just like some part of me that wishes I could help.
yeah, yeah,
Hey,
yeah. The other good thing about the wounded child archetype, it's tough as shit. Tough as shit. Like you don't get tougher. It just doesn't happen.
no, it is.
Yeah.
It is a very powerful crucible of the self. It very much is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like yeah. So you don't have to apologize. I'm glad you're. I'm glad. I'm glad you're working through this. You don't want to let. I talk a lot about devils, but like you don't want that demon dominating your destiny. You just don't. It's bad. But we all do it. We tend to do it, and it's why I always love that. God, me and pop culture. I always love that line in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. Where Master Splinter is talking to Raphael. Of course, I identified a lot with Raphael. I always wanted to be Michelangelo, but I identified with Raphael. Um, when he goes like, unlike your other brothers, you faced this enemy alone, but turned it on itself. It becomes an inconquerable enemy. The mind can be like that.
Oh,
You don't want to twist in on yourself too much. It's painful. It's bad. You don't want it. It's no good.
and two Barori one in the chat saying at Yogi Devdas, I can fix him. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I Yeah, no, I won't lie. I won't lie. Like, I think that, no, that explains like the pattern of my dating habits so much, because a lot of times the guys I end up like really falling for are
Oh,
guys.
Yogi.
I know. Well, look, not in the look. I recognize what the limitations of my capabilities are. I recognize that. I don't think I can fix every problem on the planet, but the guys I end up falling for are guys who I can recognize the beautiful, wonderful person that they actually are under everything, and they have something that I can actually deal with. You know, it just breaks my heart. I'm just like, no, let me take you home. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm such a cliched gay man. I really am.
yeah. I've always like it's very interesting. Like when I think about myself in the archetypal context, it's always, it's the house that everyone's kind of afraid of. All the kids are like, some devil worshiper lives there. That's right. And every neighborhood had that house, but the visualization of me and my relationship to the archetype is, there I stand in front of a house. I'm a little sinister looking. I get the that nasty shit eating grin. But to the one who actually rings the doorbell and comes through the foyer inside his party. And it's exactly the kind of party you want to be at. And you didn't realize that it was in this weird house that everyone was afraid of. You know, you thought you were going to go in there, it's going to be like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. No, it's not. You know, it's well, I mean, there might be horror elements, but like, it's not. You're not going to get killed. You're here to have a good time, and that's kind of how I envisioned, like, you know, myself and my relationship to the inner world, the world of the depths. You know.
Yeah, and and conversely, sorry. Conversely, I'm the guy who looks at the sinister house and goes, "Well, maybe it's not the house's fault. It looks sinister. I wonder what's inside the house. Maybe it's better."
Yeah.
There's cookies.
There could be cookies inside. There could also be axe murderers. Axe murderers with cookies.
Cookies.
It still stands.
That's you know what's so funny is like I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but just earlier yesterday, I used cookies as an example to explain what Catholic thinking is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the way I explain it to someone, because I was talking to my friend Mike, who again is Episcopalian. I'm just like, no, you don't realize how often I wished that in my childhood I could be like you, cool, calm, not very emotional, Protestant in short. You have no idea how much I wish. And I was explaining, I'm like, no, you have to understand, the whole thing with Protestantism, especially like Anglican Protestantism, it's a wonderful religion. It makes no demands on you whatsoever, you know? Like, you go to church, you sing a few hymns, you listen to a sermon, you have tea and cake with the vicar afterwards, everyone goes home and has a wank. It's fine. You don't get that when you're Catholic. Being Protestant is like going into a room where there's a plate of cookies on a table, and you just think to yourself, maybe I'll have a cookie. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll put one in my pocket and give it to someone later. What do I care? It's a fucking cookie. Catholic thinking, a Catholic in the same situation. You walk into the room, there's a plate of cookies on the table. It doesn't matter what else is going on in the room. The room could be on fire. The room could be filled with homicidal clowns killing each other with crossbows. It does not matter. Just, as a Catholic, you look at the plate and go, I'm going to eat them. I'm going to eat all the... Oh, no, I know I'm going to eat them. I know I am. Oh, God, no. I'm actually walking towards the cookies. I didn't realize that I was, but now I am. Oh, God, I'm eating them. Oh, help me. Oh, the shame. The cookies are all gone. I have nothing now but the shame. I don't know what's better, the cookies or the shame. Nothing can make me happy now, except cocaine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so much like that was actually one of the reasons I got really mad when a friend of mine was like, "Well, I think shame is really important for personal growth," and I'm like, "No, self-awareness is. Shame is a fucking toxic byproduct. You know, shame is bad. You know,
Yeah, I
what
think
you
she
want
was
is self-awareness and going like, that was fucked up, that was wrong, and I feel bad about the fact that I did it. That's fine.
Yeah, I think he
Shame is,
shame
I'm
for
bad, I'll
mistakes.
never change, it'll never get better. That's shame. Fuck that.
And then there's the additional, and then in this metaphor, there's the additional layer of, oh good, it's a child's cookie. I don't fucking deserve an adult one with dark chocolate covering. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I did to myself.
Nice things.
That's why what?
That's what I did to myself. God damn it.
Oh yeah, it'll get you.
And the thing is, I experienced that type of thinking a lot, because not only was I raised Catholic, I was raised Irish Catholic, which is its own microcosm of shit.
Yeah, I was too. Yeah, that was the other. It's really weird. Like the Baptist thinking really acquainted me with the words of the Bible quite well, because they're they're literalists, so they want you to read yon Bible and they want you to know
Are
it.
these the guys that couldn't tell you whether Satan was real?
They were the ones who told me Satan was temptation and that he was also as real as anything. And after I had did my analysis of the Garden of Gethsemane, where I was like, well, Jesus is tempted to, leave the garden and escape. And he didn't. So that's the temptation. Technically, no. That's not the way it's put in the book of, I think, Matthew. What it actually is that the devil is constantly tempting him to show his powers. Prove that you are God. But of course, what's the problem with that? If he proves he is God, then people will just follow. They will follow him. They will not follow the Logos. They will follow him.
Yeah, the whole thing of like being tempted for 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, that whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
and
wanted
of course
to draw.
that's the test.
I wanted to draw
the test.
the comic strip once where it depicts Satan as a tragic hero, like the one who wanted to give knowledge to Adam and Eve, the one who wanted to save Jesus from his dark fate, and then he finally sees everything unfold. It's like, you know what? I give up. I'm done.
Yeah.
Same evil, fine. That's what I am.
Well, yeah. Well, as I said before, to me, Satan is the thing which stands against self-righteousness. It's the tester. It's one of those like, I'm a moral person. Oh, are you really now? Are you really now? Let's test this theory. Let's see how far this goes.
But what of the Jew, Carl?
What of what?
But what of the Jew, Carl?
Carl? Yeah, what of the Jew? Yeah. There's a moment in the Red Book where he meets a figure he refers to as the Red One, who is very, very Satan-like. He's very devilish. He's not evil. He's just devilish. And Carl Jung envisions himself as a knight in armor atop a tower in the middle of the dark woods. Super intellectual, introverted. Actually, Carl Jung wasn't introverted. He was very extroverted, but like he was a thinker. Super thinker, intellectual, academic guy sees himself as a man holding a lowly vigil on a tower in the middle of the dark woods. And riding up to that is a man in a red coat, who says, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's like, "Who are you? Are you the devil?" And he goes, "Everyone says that. Everyone asks me this question if I'm the devil. Well, I'm here. Who are you up in that tower with that holding that lantern up? What are you doing?" He's like, "I am here because I have been given like a noble mission." Yeah, and this is after he has had like his first revelatory experience. After he has already descended into hell and found his other half, and his other half being a woman. Yeah, a woman who cuts his head off. Yeah, meeting in the shadows, no joke. It's intense. It's super intense. Yeah, so he fucking at one point, the Red One is like, "So why are you here?" And he's like, "It is because of my good, Christian nature. That is how you live a good life. That is how you are righteous. That is how you are just." And the Red One goes, "But what of the Jew, Carl? There are many righteous Jews, and they have heard not the word of Christ." And immediately Karl Marx gets really huffy because he's German, so he's got that German guilt, It's like, am I really a racist? Oh God! It's like, why does everyone act like I'm calling them a racist? And the Red One's like, And then Karl Marx goes like, "Well, you sound like you are from the Italian school," meaning an alchemist, means he's an alchemist. He's like, "You have the air of the Italian school about you." And then the Red One shoots back, "Yeah, well, there's too much German in you." You're just like, ooh, burn, man. Fucking burn.
I love that the whole part of the conversation where it's like, but you have an air of the pagan about you. Well, you have the stink of Christian about you.
Yeah, stick to the Christian, You're stuffy, you
Something
know?
funny. Life wouldn't be any fun if there weren't somebody to fight against.
Exactly. There's a tension there. The various parts of the soul. The dichotomy. There's a tension in the dichotomy, which is one of the things I like about the idea of Krishna being separated from Shakti.
Mm.
It's like, why? Well, so he could know desire and longing. And
Swords and
and
a
and the
love.
joy of rejoining. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All the whole mystery of love, the whole thing, not just the finding your soulmate, but literally the being without it, the seeing it, the wanting it, the working to get it, the having it, the getting it, the losing it, the finding it again, the whole thing. The whole mystery of love, and that is a really, really, really cool, super fucking cool metaphor. That is a really cool one. Because like we always say that, like, oh, Jesus is love, and it's like, yes and no, man. It's the Christianity's biggest problem has always been that it's been way too high minded. Like, it separates itself from the the lower so much that you lose track of it, and you need it. You actually need it. And once again, that's one of the things I always found interesting about Hinduism, which is the cosmological structure has it. It has all of that. It's one of the most complete cosmological structures that has probably ever existed on the planet. It's really super complex,
That's
but it's there, and that's really unusual.
and and that's why this, like, more recent movement within Hinduism to try to homogenize it,
Oh no! Oh
or
no 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 no!
it deeply causes my soul. All right, I'll see ya. It causes, like, my soul itself to shudder, and it's horrifying.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
So
it's
trying
like
to
it's
blend Hinduism with other religions to make
oh,
it palatable.
not trying to blend it with other religions, trying to take the hierarchical, homogenous stricture of things like modern Christianity and Islam and applying it to Hinduism. And I'm like,
yeah yeah
no,
yeah yeah yeah.
no.
You would lose a lot. That would be like saying one of the many faces of Vishnu is wrong.
I
Which
see.
is completely against that whole cosmology. Like, yeah, Islam
So
and
trying to create an
Christianity.
enemy, trying to create a monarchy, a ruler.
No, it's Islam and Christianity are really good at doing one thing, which is adopting things and reducing them down to a bare concept. Really good at this. But what's the problem? The problem is that it's too intellectual. It doesn't, ironically, it's too intellectual. It's too aesthetic. It separates itself from the material and physical and libidinous forces to the point where it doesn't have a context to deal with them any. It doesn't have any good way of dealing with them at all. And so they make up these really crazy rules that don't make any sense. Christianity's a good example. Islam's a super good example. Like to exist in a society where the sight of a naked woman itself is a sin. The
Mm.
sight of it, not the you looking, not it being there, but the sight of it. To see it is corruptive. It's just like, whoa, way back off, dude. Like, what the fuck? You've gone way too far.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
like
it's
taking the myth out of the story instead. And so you remove the lesson and you just left with the bare bones.
Yeah, 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 yeah. To reduce it to a bare concept, and in that pursuit, you can completely lose the myth. And I would make the argument that that was the 20th century. 20th century Western society had lost the myth because it had gone way too far in that direction.
which to me is why uh and I'm gonna sound like such a racist, and I'm so sorry, but which is to me why the Islamic invasion of the West is such a thing. And
Yeah, it is.
because people tell me, "Oh, you can't talk about it like that." I'm like, "No, fuck you, fuck Sharia. I'm sorry, but no."
Yeah. Yeah, the two big powerful remaining religions of the Logos are right now fighting it out over which one's going to stand.
I hope.
Which one is the truth? Which one really is the Logos? That's on a big metaphysical level what is happening. And
Mm.
that is terrifying. And the thing is that the brand of Christianity that is really taking the fight to Islam, we don't call Christianity, we call it secularism. Because Christianity had gotten to the point, because Christianity comes out of Catholicism, secularism comes out of Catholicism, like directly. It was a direct attempt by Catholics and philosophers to remove God from the whole moral equation. That was the idea. And that's why so many of the values of secularism line up so well with Christianity, because those are the things they wanted to keep. And there's good reason for it. They're all very useful, but now the current generation progeny are now, Cain and Abel are now fighting. They're now having a big fight. And it's rough going, because there's so much happening and there's so much fallout and there's so much that is in danger of getting lost, because people see the utility of gathering together in these kind of homogenous ideas. And so they're gravitating towards one or the other, which is why, and because there have been so many Indians who have been westernized, they think the idea of taking the native cosmology and applying the same method, the same alchemy to it is a good thing. And you're like, and I hear that and I'm like, no, that is not going to, first of all, that's not going to work.
And, even though, I'm sorry to say this, Dominic, I know you're in the chat. I love you, man, and I'm sorry to say this, and that's why I blame the English. I blame the English for everything that is culturally going on right now.
Well, yeah, in many ways, yes.
I want to point this out. Not necessarily currently. Historically, I blame them. Because it's one of those weird things where, like, okay, the reason why the avid westernization of the Indian is such a thing is because Westerners, mainly British and Germans, went over to India and they convinced native Indians that their own belief systems and ways of life were barbaric and made them feel shame for it.
Yep.
This is why, example, Indian people my age come up to me all the time and be like, why would you want to be Hindu? It is such a backwards way. I'm like, do you even understand the actual philosophy of where from?
Yeah.
So they made them abandon their god.
Yeah. Well, it's not just a god, it's an entire structure of belief in seeing the world. It's more than that. It's crazy. Like it's so weird to realize like how much in the West our concept of religion, what we call religion, and God is really massively unsophisticated. It's been reduced to a point where it can be applied to everything, but that also means you look at it and you go, the fuck is this? like you don't have much connection to it anymore, because you're just like, okay, well, if it can be applied to everything, then I guess everything's okay. It's like it becomes new age in reverse. It's weird,
and at the same time, and this is something that's so interesting too, is that like that's why I think honest Eastern philosophy, Taoism, Buddhism, to a certain extent, Shintoism, Jainism, Hinduism, the reason that they are exploding amongst certain groups of people in the West right now is is because one, um, it's not based on dogma; it's based on philosophy and self exploration, which which it quenches the spiritual thirst without the need for fanaticism.
Mm.
And then, but what I think is so weird though is that I think it's funny. Like, example, I just read a report in Ireland right now. Hinduism is the fastest growing religion in Ireland. To me,
Oh man, that is hilarious.
that's hilarious on multiple different levels. And what I think is interesting about that, I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. If Hinduism is growing that quickly in like the seat of the Catholic faith in in the British Isles, you know, um, that means that like in the next like couple decades, we're going to see more and more of it. We're going to see it growing, I assume. And if that's true, Western atheists are really going to need to step up their game.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm sorry, I know many atheists and I love them and they're wonderful people, but Western atheists generally do not have the like it's one of those things where it's like going from Western atheism to trying to use that tactic to address Eastern religion and philosophy. I'm like, oh
Oh,
no.
it won't work. It won't work. That's walking into a fucking battle unarmed.
Yeah, it's like no, that's not your weight class. You need to bulk up a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no. Just it's one of those things. Why do they always laugh at these things? It's because it's like, oh, look, it's so cute. It's trying to hurt me.
exactly. Just like,
Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, Eastern philosophy is really super immensely impressively robust. You know, but it's also a completely foreign way of it's a completely different way of thinking. Completely. Like every time I talk to someone about like Taoism or Hinduism a little less so because I'm not really a practitioner, but one of those, someone always brings in social class, and I always want to smack them in the head and go, "You already missed it. You already completely missed it." You know, because that's frustrating because you're like, yeah, social class is a thing, but it's not a core fundamental part of the philosophy. Yogi, I actually liked what you said about the caste structure. When you're like, it's not a problem with the philosophy, it's the problem with Indian culture as a whole.
yeah, it's the way
It's
the
it's on
system.
Mm.
all levels. You can't
Yeah,
get rid of the religion and have it go away. It won't work.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing. It's so okay, and that's something that always gets me. Is like, okay, that's what pisses me off uh, about hardcore atheism and hardcore theism. Both of those extremes look at each other and try to blame all of the evils of all parts of society on each other with reductivist logic, and I'm like,
Yeah,
no, life is not
yeah,
that simple, and you are not going to get away with that.
yeah. Like you've got when you say something like you're too dogmatic and you're hurting people. Hey, yeah, atheists have totally got a point.
Oh yeah,
But
no,
when the theists turn around and go like, you give people no direction and ruin meaning in their lives, they're also right. They're also completely correct. And it's really weird because in a God, how to put this? Let me put this in the alchemical perspective. We live in a world of solve. We live in a deconstructionist world, and we're reaping the whirlwind of that, and we have got to start putting things back together in some form, some kind of combination that is going to work. And no one seems to want to do that, and that's super distressing because it's already a hard job. It's already hard to put things together. And you'll also notice that the forces of Solve are so high that who do they attack all the time? Mercilessly and without, and basically without repercussion. Artists. the people whose sole function it is to recombine things.
Hmm.
It's funny how these things
Mm.
play out.
It's oh, like the whole thing is just fucking weird. It's just so fucking weird.
Yeah.
It's like
They want the truth, but they miss the point.
well, yeah, well, one that,
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
one very much that, but also it's so weird because I was talking to a friend of mine, right, who is a very staunch atheist, and we were talking, and I'm like, you realize what would and he was talking about like, yeah, one day we'll prove that God doesn't exist and we won't need all that. I'm like, you realize what will happen to Hinduism if you can prove that there is no God and no afterlife and no actual soul that exists separate from the, but you know what will happen to Hinduism if you do that, right? And he goes, yeah, it'll stop existing. Where I'm like, no, it'll just continue. It won't give a shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It won't care.
Yeah,
It'll just keep going.
it'll
It'll
just
be
keep
like,
going.
oh, I guess there's not a God. All right.
Yeah.
Well, how else do we fucking find, express our love for the infinite that seems to be only in the experience of man? Okay. So we'll just do that then.
Because it's weird because you try to explain to people like you realize that there are atheistic schools of Hinduism, right? That have all the ritual, all the everything else about it. They're just like, oh yeah, no, we don't think there's a god. Well, then why are you doing this? Because it's about the self.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
You
care.
can't tell me the self doesn't exist.
Yeah. You can't say you don't exist. It's one of the fundamental precepts of atheism. I think, therefore I am. What are you going to do when you run into that? That's what I mean by going into a battle unarmed.
Oh
You
wait,
know,
okay. I have to I have to address this. Jay Chilton 5 in the chat just said to me, if someone is crippled or mentally retarded, they are ostracized because that is their karma. That happens, but that is not the correct interpretation or application of the doctrine of karma. And I addressed that in my Fundamentals of Dharma video on my channel. You should check it out. Because here's the thing. And I will say this. Yes, if someone is crippled or mentally retarded or something horrible happens, yes, I will openly say that that is their karma. But also how they react to it and how the community around them decides to react to them is that karma as well.
yeah.
I,
Like, you treating them bad, that carries its own punishment according to
no,
the laws of karma.
exactly. I will say that yes, if someone is currently homeless because they've hit about hard times, I will openly say, yeah, that's their karma. But at the same time, me stepping over them and saying, fuck you, get a job. That's not me fulfilling my karma. And that's,
Yeah.
you know, me fulfilling my karma is to be a human fucking being and lend aid. You know,
Mm.
it's
Yeah.
it's one of those like weird fucking things where it's like, and this is what gets me about it, right? I've heard people try to say that, oh well, karma, it's just like a way for people to continue to be societally shitty to each other. To which I'll say, here's the thing, it's not that what it is that they want to be shitty to each other, so they're finding an excuse for it.
Oh yeah. That happens all the time.
You know,
That's the real heart of my anger with a lot of people that I called social justice warriors, which is like, you just wake up and just want to be shitty to somebody. And I get it. I feel that way sometimes too. But you don't get to act like you're better than me because of it. You
it's like,
know?
it's one of those things where it's like, let me put it to you this way: even without the concept of karma, the universe is still chaotic and there are still bad situations.
Yeah,
Yep.
shit still goes wrong. I don't see why anything would be immune to that.
Shit still goes.
Um,
However, however, all karma and the concept of karma does is say, okay, how can we react to the chaotic nature of the universe in such a way that we understand the interconnectivity of everything and be better people for it? That's ultimately what it should be.
Mm.
So
yeah.
I will say this: the assholes who interpret it that way, fuck them.
I gotta agree.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask.
Hmm.
You mentioned Asmodee.
Eh.
Do you want me to tell you about that?
Eh. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. All right, kids. Time for Uncle Jackula to tell you a story. The old count's gonna tell you a tale. And it is called What I Did When Asmodeus Appeared to Me. So, this story does involve Yogi. So you may remember about a month ago, month and a half, Yogi was like, "Oh man, you gotta listen to this interview with Alan Moore where he talks about meeting Asmodeus." And I'm like, "Holy shit, yeah, fuck yeah, I do." So instead of going to bed after the stream, I listened to it, and it's a very long interview. I played a little of it for you earlier, but we didn't get to the Asmodeus part. But in that interview, he's talking about how, like, yeah, he decided he was going to be a magician at 40. You know, instead of having a regular midlife crisis, I was going to go around and tell everyone that I was a magician. And you've got to be careful when you do things like that, because one day you'll wake up and realize that is exactly what you are.
Oh, I'm sorry, just really quick. I hate to interrupt you, but I just want to point out I'm doing this call on my phone right now. My phone might
do that.
Yep.
Oh my god. All right. Come on.
Technology fail.
Technology fail. Come on. Ah. Come on. Ah. Ah.
yellow.
Yo, we can hear
Okay.
you. The flame of enlightenment is shining, but we do not see you. It is too bright. You still there? Son of a bitch. All right, we'll let him call us back. Oh my god.
Does that mean no story time?
Hopefully not. Hopefully it means we'll still have story time because I've been wanting to tell this story for a little bit now. Champing at the bit, really. God. Uh oh boy. Yep. All right. Let's see if it'll work if I call him.
Do do do.
Salim's Abim Salabim.
I demand you to stay in contact.
Yeah. Did he just call you back?
Oh, no, okay, I'm good.
Okay. All right. We're not getting visual though.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My camera's kind of acting finicky right now.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just deal. We'll just cope. All right.
Now Yogi's the imaginary friend.
Yeah. All right.
I'm everybody's imaginary friend. I'm everywhere, kids.
It's, oh my god. So, after you told me about that interview, I listened to it, and he's talking about this ritual that he did with his soon-to-be wife, and it fails. The ritual fails. They're trying to summon something. He's like invoking Glycon. He's doing everything. He's Alan Mooring as hard as he can, and nothing happens. It's a big gathering of his friends. Nothing happens. He goes up to his bed and sulks. And, he sulks. He's like, I'm a fraud. I don't know what I'm doing. I've gone utterly mad, and I'm a complete and utter failure. Which, and then he says the best thing ever, which was very unlike me. But he realizes he has this feeling. He's like, wait, these thoughts, I'm not thinking this. Something's thinking this for me. I think maybe it's a demon. And all of a sudden, like like he starts like shaking and like holding on to the bed and like convulsing, and he has this image of this immense mental fight between it. This is all going somewhere. Um, Mental fight between him and whatever this thing is, and then he calms down, and his wife comes into the his fiance comes into the room. She's like, "Alan, what was that?" He's like, did you notice something? He's like, we did, but it seems to be gone away. And he's like, it's not gone away, but it's far enough away that it can't do us any more harm. I think it was a demon. And she's like, what makes you think that? And they go back and forth for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, as they're talking, Alan's like, and I hear this voice in my head. And it goes, do you know who I am? He's like, all right, I didn't think that. Something's talking to me. All right, I remembered something about, I start with B. Are you, yeah, I'm like, who are you? It's like, guess. Is it Belial? No. Is it Beelzebub? No. Is it Asmodee? Yes. And of course, Asmodee is one of the names of Asmodeus. Now, here's where I enter the story. I'm hearing this, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And then he goes into his encounter with Asmodee, and and the guy goes, what did he do? He's like, I asked if I could see him, see what he looked like. And did he? He did. And what did it look like, Alan? And he goes, it was a pink and purple lattice work of lizards that made it. And at that point, like, I freak out, because every time I get really out there, the image that I have and that I have always had is of a lizard latticework. And more important than that, I don't just see it, I am part of it. I am part of this reptilian lizard-like latticework of constant yearning, constant calling, and constant coupling. So I hear this description and I freak the fuck out. Because if any of that is real, not only have I also seen it, I'm part of it. I'm part of Asmodeus. And I'm like, I finished the interview and I'm just sitting there going like, how's that possible? What the fuck is going on? Like, I'm freaking out, man. Then I hear the voice. You know, it's like, oh my God. It's like, oh my God, is this happening? And then you hear like, yes. And I'm like, oh shit. It's like fucking Pontypool. Now I've got it. Okay. What, who are you? And it's basically like, you already know. And I'm like, okay, so it's Asmodeus. Like, yes. And I'm like, oh God, what does it mean? And he's like, I know what it means. You're a piece of me and you've been taken from me. and I want you back. And I'm just sitting there like, oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. And this is the moment. And I'm and I'm wide awake, by the way. I am wide awake and I'm trembling and I'm like, they're like getting close to crying. And I'm like, oh God, what do I do? I've either gone completely fucking insane or there's a demon after me. Neither one is good. Neither one is good. So I got
These
to
are
do
both bad
something. These are
options.
both bad options, and I have got to find my way out of this fast. And I immediately thought of what happened on another trip, um, which was the vision of the quote unquote spiritual mother as a witch who looked like fucking what's her face from Supernatural. Rowena, who looked like Rowena from Supernatural, who spoke in a Irish accent, and called me her wicked boy. And I remember something that I had heard on that trip, which is don't believe what they say about your father. He will always protect you, and he has always protected you. And as a matter of fact, there's probably going to have to be a point where you got to tell him to knock it off. And I immediately, at this moment where it's like, I'm going to take, and this thing is describing all these horrible things it's going to do to me, in order to get me back. And they're just horrific. And all of a sudden, I just think very loudly in my own head, you cannot touch me. I am the son of Baphomet. Immediately, the image is of this this demonic entity like looking at this little thing, and all of a sudden it just being unable to be touched. It's like, oh. And immediately there's the voice is like, fuck.
Yeah, he doesn't.
All right.
That's that's the thing about that's the thing about Asmodeus as the demon of knowledge and visual exposure. He doesn't like to be outwitted.
Yeah. Because Baphomet is an alchemist.
He's the alchemist.
He's the alchemist. He has the mastery of all material reality. And I say this, I have this vision. He's like, fuck, all right, fine. And I ask him a bunch of questions. Probably the most pertinent is what happened. Like, how am I a part of you? And he's like, Baphomet took a piece of me out and gave it to Tawusi. And I'm like, okay, that's a fucking weird amalgamation of ideas right there. All right, and around this point, like in this experience, like Baphomet shows up. He is behind me, and he is like, all right, that's enough of that. Yeah, Asmodeus, you just stay where you are. I'm going to talk to the child now. And there's nothing you can do about it. And there's nothing you can do about it. Menace us all you want. It doesn't matter. And we have a little conversation. It's like, is that true? Is what he said true? And Baphomet's like, yes, I plucked you out. I plucked out a piece of Asmodeus and gave it to your mother and father. And I'm like, why? He remained silent. And I'm like, why? He remained silent. And I'm like, okay. And we sit there in slight awkwardness for a while. And then he goes, would you like to meet your father? And I'm like, I thought you were my father. And he goes, yes and no. You are my son, but you are his child. Which I thought was a really weird distinction. I figured out what it meant a bit later. So, at this moment, the vision shifts and King Peacock appears. And he is very happy to see me. He is very loving. He's very excited. Very excited. It's like, finally. Like, you've seen me. You finally saw me. And I'm like, I did. I have finally seen you. Like, what's going on? Oh, none of that matters. None of that matters. What matters is that you've seen me. And now you can see yourself. This is wonderful. This is this is what we've waited for. Well, who's waited? Well, me and your mother. Whose mother? He's like, would you like to meet her? And I'm like, yes, I would. Yes, I would. Up we go. Into the whatever relative up is in this context. And there is a temple made of light. Is the best way to describe it. It's not actually made of light. This is the best way to describe it. And he's like, go on in. And I'm like, aren't you coming with me? And he's like, no, you need to meet her by yourself. You need to be by yourself when you first meet her. And I'm like, okay. So I walk in, and inside this temple is a woman. She's like a giant. She's like, like 20 feet tall. And she's sitting in a lotus position. She has multiple arms, and she radiates white light. Just to the point where I can't see her face. And I'm like, and I ask her, like, is that you? And she's like, it is. How are you? And I'm like, and I cry. I cry because, like, this is a big deal. Like, this is a big deal to me. Like, I'm like kind of weeping and shaking and all that stuff. And then she just lets me do that, and I go, like, I've missed you so much. Like, why could I never find you? And it's like, because bad things happen. It's one of those. It's like, why did everything suck so bad? It's like, because bad things happen. They weren't meant to. They just happen. But you've made it here, my little Tawuzi. I'm like, she calls me her little Tawuzi. And I'm like, okay. And about this time, I'm like, whoa, I'm getting really arrogant up in my own mind here. Like, this is crazy. But I stay there.
But that's the power of her love, though.
Yeah, exactly. And so, we go. I'm done with that. I come back down, back down to earth, as it were, and I contemplate this whole experience. I'm contemplating. I'm like, that was weird. Like, to have an experience like that in the waking world, not on drugs, is really super unusual. Like, I'm like, that's a vision. Like, that's the kind of vision that usually, like prophecy is made from. Like, that kind of shit. Now, maybe not that kind of stuff exactly, but like approaching that space. And I'm like, good God, what the fuck just happened? Oh, there was another part of it. I forgot about this. Before meeting Tawuzi, actually, I had forgotten. Baphomet says, do you want to be the shadow? And I'm like, I do. And he's like, all right. And he leaves me on a plateau, a black plateau filled with darkness, and emerging out of the rock is this white gelatinous mass that is moaning in pain. And I'm just like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting like, something that looked like me, but like, was red or had smoke coming out of its eyes or something. No. This is a visualization. This is obviously very important because I wasn't expecting this at all. And it sometimes had an old man's face and sometimes it had no face at all. And I said the only thing I could think of saying at the time, which was, "You're very strong." This seems to soothe it slightly. Not a lot. But it's apparently enough for it to recognize who I am. And I had this sensation of saying this as a little child. And I'm just sort of like, okay, this is all weird. So that was another aspect that had happened before going up to meeting King Peacock and going up to the Temple of Light, meeting the spiritual mother whose name I do not know, but I kind of because I don't know her name, I just refer to her as the mother of whores. The great whore Babylon, maybe.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. So on your way in, when he says to you, like, oh no, you have to go in and see her yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're walking into the temple, into what I'm assuming is the inner chamber where she is, just out of curiosity, on either side of you, do you have the sensation? Would you say that you have the sensation of perceiving that there are what seems to be white marble columns, but you're not quite sure if they're there or not because it's so brilliantly bright that you can't tell if they're actually physically there?
Yes.
Okay, I know where you were.
Oh,
I've been there.
okay. Okay. Basically, you don't know specifically what it's called. You've just been there yourself.
I mean, I know that I know that we have words for it, but I also know that's not what it's really called.
Yeah.
I've been to that space. I've met her. She's awesome.
Yeah. I find it very interesting that she's nameless.
Well,
like that was really curious because I kept asking, "What's your name?" and it was basically like there was no answer.
Well, because that's the thing about it. Like, it doesn't really. Okay, if this makes any sense, it doesn't matter what her name is so much as there's one thing that she wants us to call her.
Yeah,
and that's mother. That's all she wants.
I'm an idiot. I didn't put that together. You're right. Oh man. Got it.
Yeah, that's all she really, but that's the thing about it, though. It's like, that's all she wants from her children is to say,
oop. God damn it.
I'll finish a sentence. I love you.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you cut out. Just all she wants you to say is, and then you cut out.
All she wants to hear from you is, "You're my mother. I love you."
Oh, it's half right.
Yeah.
That's all she wants.
Yeah, but I never had like an experience like that with a with a feminine force. Super profound, super weird, but very very familiar. You have all those contradictory feelings at once. So after all that, I come back down, and after I come back down, there's Asmodeus waiting, just kind of like annoyed. irritated. It's just he's irritated, and I was like, why is he irritated? And it's like, it's because you can't touch me, isn't it? He's like, oh, there are other ways in. There are always other ways in. I'm like, son of Baphomet. And he's like, oh God, that's not gonna work forever, And I'm like, then I'll have to learn another trick. And I did. I did learn another trick, and the trick escalates. It's weird. Like, for example, like I was walking around. I've been slowly building this altar, which I have yet to assemble, but I'm getting all the pieces up. And one of the images I had was, I'm walking around San Francisco and I'm gathering stuff up for the altar, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm going completely fucking off my rocker. And one of the voice of Baphomet shows up again. He's like, all right, you'll need this, and this. I'm not gonna tell you what they are, but he gives me a list of shit. And I'm like, okay, I know what each of these is, and I know what each of these are. So I have to get them. Got it. And I'm like, so what do we do about Asmodeus in the meantime? And he's like, well, I'm gonna have to refer you to your father. All right. So King Peacock emerges again, and I'm like, all right, Dad, I got Asmodeus on my ass. He can't hurt me, but I'm afraid that him being able to spy on me whenever he wants is going to be a problem. And he's like, oh yeah, it's totally going to be a problem. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? And he's like, well, I'll teach you one trick. And the trick is to envision myself covered in a dome of peacock feathers. And I'm like, okay, we'll do that. Okay, why does that work? And he's like, because the one thing that, the penetrative gaze cannot stand is the penetrating gaze reflected upon it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, the peacock is full of eyes. Its feathers are full of eyes. And it's like, oh, like, can't even look at it, And I'm like, well, won't he muster the will and break through? He's like, no, it's not about will. It's not about will. You can't understand what it's not about will. He literally can't do it. And I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. He's like, yeah, won't work forever. He'll figure something else out. And on another night, I'm sitting there, and it's the like, aha, I've gotten in. And I'm like, oh shit, what do I do? And this was the most egotistical thing ever. Here is where my fucking ego reaches heights unfucking imaginable. So there we are. We're on the Black Plateau. I'm facing off against Asmodeus. I'm a bit larger in comparison, but of course, he's Asmodeus. He's very powerful. He's a demon written about for hundreds of thousands of years. Obviously knows a thing or two about a thing or two. And he's like, all right, like, it's on. He grabs me and I disappear. And he's like, okay, he's like, there's a moment where he's like, I wasn't quite expecting that. He's like, okay, where are you? Now, one of the things you have to understand about Asmodeus is that he has a peacock's tail. In the lore, he has a peacock's tail. And Alan Moore also talks about this. In fact, why don't I bring up the drawing that Alan Moore did of his vision of Asmodeus. Alan Moore Asmodeus. And the way Alan Moore describes this is, imagine what a fourth dimensional being would look like to us on the third. It would look like it was coming at us from all directions. This is Asmodeus. So I'm facing off against something that's made up of shit like that.
Euclidean geometry, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. What does that mean? How is that a thing that lives? And all of a sudden, I disappear, and he's like, "Ah, shit, he's done something. Fuck, what is it?" And then all of a sudden, the image is all of his peacock eyes going like, "Haha, I'm back in." He's like, "Wait, what do you mean you're back in? I'm part of you. I'm back in." And he's like, "Wait, isn't that what I wanted?" No, it's not what you wanted, because not only am I inside you, pull back, full non-Euclidean geometry, Doctor Strange moment. Now I'm gigantic and he's in my hand. And I am like, I am also outside of you. And so we're running around like this fucking insane psychedelic space, moving through images of peacocks, to the point where he's just like, all right, fine, you win this round. Oh, man. And so that was me dealing with Asmodeus so far. There will probably be another chapter at some point.
He really fucking hates it when he really fucking hates it when human beings outwit him, though. He really can't stand it.
Yeah, it's really irritating. I don't blame him, but like, hey, let's be fair. He threatened me first.
Well, but that's the thing. This is what differentiates like the archetypal demon from the archetypal angel. The archetypal demon gets too haughty for his own good, and he literally starts to like see other things as below him regardless of their potential.
Yeah. It's one of the classic forms of oversight. And but I still think it's really strange. The one thing that I have yet to truly figure out, the son of Baphomet, I figured out what that meant. Because it was son. It wasn't child. It wasn't progeny of. It was specifically son. And I realized it's not just son, SON. It's SUN.
Yes.
Yeah. Because Baphomet is the alchemist, so he has the Philosopher's Stone, which was representative of the soul. So if you say, if you say I am the son of Baphomet, like what you're basically saying is, I have a soul. This is my soul. Fuck you. You can't come in. You can't come in. Because I am denying you entrance. You are not invited inside.
I would like to declare here, before the entire slut pit and before the internet, behold, this is the man, Jack Shen, who has called himself Jackula, who has become the Solus Invictus. All hail the realization.
Oh man, yeah.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. But but obviously it does not end there.
Oh no, but you can celebrate a milestone. It's okay.
Good point. It was very strange. It was super odd. It was like, wow, this is a really like intense experience. Like, like I said, you don't usually have those in a waking state sober.
This is true. This is very true. And you know what's so funny is that, like, it's interesting because in my personal experience, I've used similar things of, like, you can't touch me, I am the son of, but I've used them a lot for feminine manifestations. Like for instance, there was, like, there have been times when, and I think I've talked about this a little bit on here before, is that I have done, like, paranormal investigation.
Oh, you cut out there. I heard
All
something.
right.
Yeah, yeah. I think you had just said paranormal investigation.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned before that I have done paranormal investigation work.
Yeah, yeah, you have.
Yeah. So there have been times where I've been in environments and situations that I felt threatened, and ultimately I've said things out loud like,
Uh-oh.
"Okay, okay, we back."
Things out loud like,
Okay, things out loud like, "You can't fucking touch me. I'm the son of Mahakali."
hmm.
Or or even or even like, this one there was this one particular episode in a cemetery, and I was like, "You can't fucking touch me. La Santísima Muerte is my godmother. Fuck you."
Yeah, 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 yeah. Can't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really interesting. It's like I said, like you got to remember, like at the end of the day, like things these things can't just get in. They've gotta they have to trick you because if you just refuse, it's like oh fuck. Now their job just got hard.
Well, yeah, that's why
I remember
stereotyp.
seeing something similar, although mostly on an emotional level. It's
Mm.
where I mentioned this before, where I feel the depression closing in. It's like, and I want some peace tonight before I go to sleep, so I use positive energy to keep it away. Sometimes it's not even that. It's just sometimes I'm traveling home at night and I'm not necessarily afraid of people. I'm afraid of invisible spirits. So the entire time I'm going home, I'm imagining a force field around myself. Not to keep
Hmm.
working on it in order to keep them away. I'm paranoid.
Yeah. Yes. I was always very confrontational. I was either confrontational or inviting. It's like, hey, come, I'll be your friend. Stay a while. Be like, okay, and then you meet some some nice idea that's just floating out there, or it's like, oh, you're a malevolent idea. You can fuck right off. Um, but the thing about malevolent feelings that originate from within, which are the ones I'm really interested in, is those have been super confrontational. Like when Yogi was first describing the feeding the demon ritual. Where I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I always just sit there and I just kind of like, imagine myself talking to the feeling and just going, what do you want? What are you really after? Why are you saying this thing? Why are you telling me this? What is it you want? And I was like, and I know for me, if I do that enough times with enough, intensity and intent behind it, eventually it gives up the answer. And it's weird because yeah, you learn something about yourself, which is like this one time I'm like, why am I being so angry? Why am I pushing everyone away? Because Sam has died. Oh, oh, your friend has died, and I don't know how to act, and I grieve really angrily. So I'm mad because my friend has died, and I never quite dealt with that because I had how to put it there there was another guy that I used to be friends with um, who had also had a lot of peacock tendencies. Um,
Hmm.
and there was definitely we definitely did that, but I think he took it way more seriously than I did because I thought at the end of the day we were still friends. We were just kind of like barking at each other, but like he was willing to go to that sneakier, meaner level, and I was like, fuck, like you don't you don't go that far with a friend over. something that's not an issue. You know, we're not actually fighting over this random chick. We're not actually doing that because I'm not actually interested. I thought we were friends who were sparring against each other. And do you really? Is it, you know, and that one really? You gotta threaten the friendship over this one? Fuck you. I realized that because that guy always showed up to funerals and always made a big show of himself, I was never able to do the simple, sincere grief because he brings this pettier side of me out. And I'm like, I can't be around that when I'm in this state. It's bad. You know, I get angry. I don't just get angry, like I fucking get resentful. I can't fucking do that. You know, so that's an example of how confronting the thought and demanding it give you an answer until it gives it up can actually give you a bit of a pathway, can reveal things about yourself. You know, because it's not like they lie. You know, the lie is the thing that it's telling you now. So you're trying to get through that. You know, because you have all these little mechanisms in your head, and you're not necessarily conscious about everything that they do, because if you did, you wouldn't do anything. You'd be paralyzed by indecision, and so the brain just does it automatically for you. You know, but sometimes you got to clean house. You know, and make sure that everything is copacetic. Oh man.
Oh goodness.
Goodness. Yeah.
Oh.
How are you doing, Envoy?
Good. Really sleepy.
Okay.
Envoy's sleepy.
Yeah. Well, maybe maybe we should end it here. Maybe we should call it a day.
Since literally, it's morning.
Yeah, since that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah. I've been meaning to have you on for a while because you seemed like you were going through some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I choose some really weird ways to express it.
Oh, hey.
That's what this entire community is based off of.
Yeah, that's what this entire community is based off of. Hell, my entire experience that I just described to you could be very easily summed up it was summed up with, Jackula's got mom and dad issues. You know, like, you know, Count Jackula works out his fucking emotional issues with his parents live on the internet. You know, like, you could very easily take it that way. You know, oh my god, actually this was another vision I had. It's real quick, but it was really funny. Which was, you know, me going like, how did it happen? How did everything go wrong? It sounded like you wanted everything to go perfectly. They're like, yes, you always want the best for your child, but we had to take the chance because we need to send you into the material world. And I'm like, what was that like? And here was the image. The image was King Peacock holding me up and going like, here it is, our beautiful child, ready to enter the material plane. This is the moment we've been waiting for, you know. And the mom going like, I'm so worried. What if something goes wrong? You know, will they love him? And King Peacock going like, who could not love such a perfect child? Donk. Oh, well, okay. So it's one of those. It's just I know. Yeah. Oh shit.
Like, so, little problem.
Little problem. That happened.
We may have to circumvent a little bit.
Yeah, maybe not be done here. Yeah. man.
But then, how beautiful and wonderful is the fact, though, that Jack, you now have all these people, both in your personal life and in the periphery.
Oh, I was waiting for that sentence to be finished.
Oh, wait, where did that cut out?
Yeah.
It, here and in your periphery.
Oh, that both here and in your periphery, you have all these people who do love you for who you are.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. It's fucking awesome. It's fucking amazing. I can't express how fucking happy I am that the stream right now is the thing that is working on a career level.
You basically get
Like,
paid talking to your friends.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like, obviously I got to do something more, something more with that, because it can't just stay the same, but like I'm going to keep that aspect of it, obviously, but
Fuck you,
it's kind
Dr.
of
Phil,
nice.
this is the real shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Fuck you, Dr. Phil.
Phil, this is the real shit.
Yeah, let's get Jungian up in this bitch.
You Freudian ass. Fuck off.
Yeah, fuck off. Well, what you really gotta do is you gotta tell everybody how sorry you are for the way you hurt. Oh, fuck you, Dr. Phil. No. Fuck, that's your answer. That's your answer for everything.
It's like, fuck you, fuck Deepak Chopra, and you know what? I'ma say it. Fuck Oprah. I don't care if she's the queen of America. Fuck Oprah.
Deepak Chopra. Oh my god. That dude.
It's one of those weird things where it's just like, I'm like, you know what? I understand why people don't get Hinduism, because you either get this fanatical shit that's happening now, or you get motherfuckers like Deepak Chopra. I'm like, god damn it.
No, I'm sorry, you can't use quantum physics to prove the existence of reincarnation, especially when you get it wrong. It's like, stop it.
You can definitely use quantum physics to suggest that reality is a multi-layered thing, which is a lot more intricate and perceptual based than we want to admit. Yes, do that. The Dalai Lama does that. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Don't do that shit.
No. You can't prove it scientifically. I've come to a conclusion. I've come to a definition of magic that I'm enjoying at the moment, which is it is the attempt to change reality at the perceptual and probabilistic level.
Sounds right.
Yeah. It's one of those, like, it's a lot of it's about perception and a lot of it's about probability. And those are two things which are unfortunately really hard to prove in a scientific sense. It's really hard.
Well, I guess that's why it's called magic and not science.
Yeah, exactly. But because every part of magic that was understandable through science is now just called science. It's just now part of science. Like medicine, chemistry, engineering, all those things at one point were just part of alchemy. All of them. Every single one. But now we're dealing with what's left, which is the big question, the big philosophical questions. Who am I? What do I want? Where am I going? Those are actually much more profound questions than people realize they are. Super profound.
And what's interesting?
Yeah.
What's interesting is that, like Alan Moore has said that, like, consciousness is a problem for material science.
It is.
Okay. And something that really proves that pure scientific materialism has an issue with the consciousness and the spiritual. What is the one science what is the one study or area that kind of forms the bridge between materialistic science and magic and spiritualism? That's psychology.
Psychology, yeah.
And yet, what is the one area that is most talked shit about by hardcore materialists? Psychology.
Psychology. Yeah,
Mm.
because it does have that, it has that issue, which is, well, how do you prove these things? It's like, well, we're working on it.
It's like, you experience them, you fuckwit.
Yeah. You experience them, and it's one of those, you can't doubt your own experience. You can doubt whether it's happening in the material world, but you can't doubt the experience itself. It doesn't work that way. You know, you can doubt whether it's real, but you don't doubt the experience. Well, and on that note, I think we've kept Envoy up. But you look happy. You're smiling. I'm, I'm, I'm glad you're smiling.
And we're all hoping that it's honest happiness and not just the delirium.
No, it's honest. It's honest laughter, which is
Yay!
good. I like to laugh.
Uh, Hold on. Have you ever waited for test results that made fear for someone else's mortality? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that material world. As long as we live, we exist within it. We exist within the third dimension.
Hmm.
But is there something of us that exists in a dimension higher? That's a big question. That's an interesting question. You know, because you have to think, if I'm plucked from a small lizard, which is a piece of Osmodeus, are there other pieces that are out there that have been plucked out? I wonder sometimes.
And what have they done?
And what have they done? Yeah, exactly. Oh man. I'm sorry you're having an emotionally exhausting time, Sean Murphy. Oh geez. Yeah, something is always happening in the world, but we're glad we could share some time with you. And thank you once again, Yogi, for talking with me. This is a story I've been wanting to tell you for a little while, actually.
Thank you for the story.
Yeah. And I am just going to sign off now.
Before you
And
do, before you do,
okay.
I just want to say one thing. I love you, Jack. And Yogi, thank
Oh,
you for being my friend.
of course.
Aw.
Like, yeah, ah, that's it for my emotions. I'm done. Too much, too much.
All right. And remember,
I'll
hey,
get better, I
Slut
promise.
Hey, Slut remember, Satan, King Peacock, Baphomet, and the Mother of us all love you very much. We'll see you again in the next one.
Hail Satan.
Hail Satan. Take care.
Good night. Morning.